Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Golden Bachelorette Joan Vassos reveals why Keith got first rose. Golden Bachelorette Joan Vassos is opening up and revealing why she chose to give Keith Gordon her first impression rose. There's no doubt she had a ton of good men to choose from, so what made her choose him over everyone else? Keep reading to find out what Joan had to say. Golden Bachelorette Joan Vassos shares why she gave Keith first rose. Golden Bachelorette Joan Vassos is one lucky lady. She has so many adorable men to choose from. Of course, Bachelor fans know that sadly the first impression rose can only go to one lucky man. Fans saw Joan give her first impression rose to Keith Gordon. They even shared a kiss. So why did she choose him above everybody else? She spoke with Bachelor Nation and gave them the scoop. Overall, Joan shared that she chose Keith because of how he made her feel. She went on to say that Keith's entrance was great. He showed up in an old station wagon with luggage attached to the top of the car. However, it wasn't the entrance that intrigued her, although it did remind her of her own childhood. Joan said that she remembers sitting with Keith on the hood of the car and talking. At that moment she felt very comfortable and it was an easy conversation. She said, "I remember as our time was coming to an end, it was time for the next car to come in. He was like, 'Let's just get out of here. Let's grab a wine and some cheese and go sit on a blanket on the beach.' And I was just like, that's exactly what I'd like to do. That would feel so good right now." Joan continued to explain by saying, "And then I got to talk to him inside and just kept getting a feeling of comfort and being safe, and he's just like this big teddy bear kind of guy. So it was way more about how I felt when I was with him than his cool entrance. I gave him the rose because he made me feel safe and comfortable." Everyone seemed to like Keith. Joan Vassos liked Keith Gordon, and it seems a lot of viewers do too. Keith is from San Jose, California, and is 62 years old. He is a girl dad and is ready to find someone to share his life with. He made quite the impression on night one. How long will he stick around? Fans will have to tune in on Wednesday nights to find out. The night was electric, a symphony of nervous energy and unspoken hopes. The lights of the luxurious mansion cast golden reflections in the wine glasses, while the whispers of anticipation flowed through the crowd like the wind through the trees. Joan Vassos, the first ever Golden Bachelorette, stood poised at the center of it all, radiant in a shimmering dress that seemed to glow with every movement. At 63, Joan had already lived a life full of love, loss, and everything in between. But this moment was something new, something extraordinary. She was about to offer the first rose of her journey, an emblem of possibility, of new beginnings, to one of the many hopeful men standing before her. Everyone wondered, why Keith? Keith Holloway, a retired firefighter from Portland, stood among the dozen suitors, his rugged demeanor softened by the gentle lines of age and wisdom etched into his face. Joan's decision to give Keith the first rose sparked immediate curiosity among viewers and fellow contestants alike. After all, first roses have weight. They're more than mere symbols. They're a promise, a subtle declaration of something unseen but deeply felt. In a post-ceremony interview, Joan Vassos sat down to finally reveal what it was about Keith that captured her heart so early on. As she sipped her glass of white wine, her eyes sparkled with the same vitality that had made her a favorite from the very first episode. "Keith was different from the moment I saw him," Joan said, her voice steady and thoughtful. "I could feel it in my bones. You know, at this age, you don't just look for the surface stuff anymore. Life has taught you to search for something deeper, and Keith, he had that." She paused, considering her words carefully. Joan was never one to be impulsive, but the decision to give Keith the first rose had come to her like second nature. She wasn't swayed by grand gestures or clever lines. She was moved by something more elemental, more soulful. "I've had my share of romances," Joan continued. "I've loved, I've lost, and I've learned what it means to truly share a life with someone. But with Keith, there was this quiet confidence. He didn't try to impress me with stories or accomplishments. Instead, he shared a small moment from his life, something ordinary but so real, so authentic." During their first conversation, while some of the other men regaled Joan with tales of their past adventures or tried to win her favor with compliments, Keith had simply talked about a walk he'd taken earlier that morning. He described how the fog hung low over the trees in his neighborhood park, how the air smelled of pine and rain, and how he'd noticed a family of ducks swimming in the pond. It wasn't what he said, but how he said it, with a kind of reverence for the simple beauty of the world, a recognition that life's most meaningful moments aren't always the grand ones. He wasn't trying to win me over, Joan explained. He was just being himself, and that's what drew me in. There's something about a man who can appreciate the quiet moments, who doesn't need to fill every silence with noise. It's in those silences where you often find the truth of who someone really is. Joan's life had been full of noise for as long as she could remember. A successful career, a bustling family, the highs and lows of marriage and motherhood. But now, in this chapter of her life, she craved the quiet moments. She was looking for someone who could share them with her, someone who understood that love at this stage wasn't about fireworks or grand passion, but about companionship, about being with someone who could sit in the same room with you and feel like home. There was also something about his eyes, Joan added with a soft smile. They had this warmth, this depth that made me feel safe. I think that's something we all look for, especially as we get older, someone who makes us feel safe, not just physically but emotionally. Keith had that. I felt like I could trust him, and that's rare. Joan was no stranger to the complexities of relationships. After her husband passed away 5 years ago, she had spent a long time healing, rediscovering herself, and learning to navigate the world on her own. She knew what she wanted now, what she needed. And while it was too early to say if Keith was the one she would ultimately choose, there was no denying that he had sparked something within her. The first rose, she said thoughtfully, is a way of saying, I see you. I see something in you that's worth exploring. It doesn't mean I've made up my mind, but it means I want to know more. As the night wore on, Keith had remained calm, never letting the excitement or tension of the evening get to him. He didn't hover around Joan like some of the others, nor did he retreat into the background. He was simply present, steady, and grounded, and that, Joan reflected, was what she needed most in a partner. At this age, you don't need someone to sweep you off your feet, Joan concluded. You've already been through the whirlwind. What you need is someone who will stand beside you when the wind dies down. Keith feels like that kind of man. The Golden Bachelorette's journey had only just begun, but Joan knew that no matter where it led, the first rose she gave to Keith would always be significant. It was the beginning of a story, perhaps a love story, or perhaps just a chapter in their lives. But it was a moment that had already touched her heart. And as the viewers at home watched Keith accept the rose, they could see it too. The spark of something real, something rare. The anticipation was thick in the air that evening. Inside the sprawling mansion, under the twinkling chandeliers, a group of men, each with graying hair, weathered hands, and eyes full of hope, stood waiting. They were older than the typical contestants on a show like this, but no less eager for the chance at love. And standing before them, poised and elegant, was Joan Vassos, the Golden Bachelorette. At 63, Joan had lived a life full of triumphs and challenges, but tonight she wasn't thinking about the past. She was thinking about the future, and in particular about one man, Keith Holloway. Keith, a retired firefighter with a quiet strength and deep, kind eyes, had caught Joan's attention almost immediately. That much was clear when, after just a few hours of mingling and casual conversations, Joan handed him the first rose of the night. The symbolic gesture sent a ripple through the room. First roses always do, but this one felt particularly poignant. In an exclusive interview after the ceremony, Joan opened up about her decision to give Keith that coveted first rose, revealing the depth of her connection with him and why she believes he's worth pursuing. I could tell Keith was different from the moment he stepped out of the limo, Joan began, sitting comfortably in a soft chair, her expression thoughtful yet warm. The energy she carried throughout the interview was as graceful as it had been during the ceremony. There was something in his eyes that just felt familiar, not in a way that I knew him, but like I could understand him without him having to say a word.